Hi, and welcome to Building a Professional Trading Bot from Scratch. This is the first episode of a series of at least 8 episodes. But before we start, I would like to spend a few minutes talking about what we're actually going to build in this series, what you can expect, and what you'll need to follow along. Because building a trading bot that can place an order isn't particularly difficult. Building a trading system that you can understand, test, extend, and eventually trust with real money is a very different problem. If you search YouTube for how to build a trading bot, you'll find plenty of examples. Typically, you'll start with a relatively simple trading strategy, connect to some source of market data, calculate an indicator or a signal, and then turn that signal into an order. More recently, you'll also find plenty of examples where AI does much of the programming for you. You describe the strategy, ask an AI to generate the code, connect it to a broker, and before long you have something that can actually trade. And there is nothing wrong with either approach. In fact, if all we wanted to do was build a bot that trades one simple strategy, this entire course could probably be a single 15-minute episode. The first time you program a trading bot, you'll probably follow a pretty natural sequence of events. Connect to a broker, download some market data, calculate an indicator, generate a signal. If the signal says buy, send a buy order. Add an exit somewhere, and we have a trading bot. This is also how I built my first trading bot. And it's great, especially the first time you manage to get all of this working. Suddenly you can sit back and relax while your bot is taking trades left and right. But that's not what we're aiming for in this course. Because once you have that first bot going, you'll start to lean back and think, why not add a few more instruments? And why not add a few more strategies? Your bot starts growing and things can get complicated surprisingly quickly. Another strategy, another instrument, different time frames, risk management, position management. What happens if the connection drops? What happens if the bot restarts with an open position? How does it figure out what happened while it wasn't connected? During this course, we will build an automated trading system, not just a bot, which can handle all of these separate problems. And one of the main ideas or design principles behind the system is that each separate problem should also have a separate solution. Instead of building one increasingly complicated trading script, we're going to divide the system into components, with each component having one clearly defined responsibility. And this is actually the first lesson of this course. One of the most important principles in software architecture, particularly when building larger systems, is the single responsibility principle. In simple terms, every component should have one job, and it should do that job well. Market data is one responsibility. Calculating indicators is another. Generating trading signals is another. Managing risk is another. Executing orders is another. Throughout this course, we're going to keep separating these responsibilities rather than allowing them to slowly become tangled together. We'll build these components one at a time, and as the series progresses, we'll connect them into a complete system. But throughout the course, our main focus will be on the design and architecture of the bot. We're not going to spend hours doing hardcore coding. This is not intended to be an advanced Python course, and you certainly don't need to be an expert programmer to follow along. Some basic Python knowledge will be required if you want to understand the code itself. You should be reasonably comfortable with things like variables, functions, classes, dictionaries, and lists. Perhaps more importantly, some basic programming experience will help when we start talking about the architecture of the system, why we separate responsibilities into different classes, how those components communicate with each other, and why we deliberately don't allow certain parts of the system to know too much about other parts. But none of that requires advanced computer science. A beginner's level of programming experience is perfectly sufficient. And throughout the course, I'll spend much more time explaining why we're designing something in a particular way than explaining Python syntax line by line. If you're a beginning programmer, don't let the size of the system we're going to build put you off. These days, building something like this has become easier than ever. AI is an incredibly useful programming tool, and it can help you write most of the code. If you've learned how to design an automated trading system, you can, and perhaps should, use AI to help you implement that design. There is no particular virtue in typing every line of code yourself, but as long as you are orchestrating how the system is built, you remain in control and you keep the overview. Particularly when the software is eventually going to control real money, I think you should understand what the major components of your system do, why they exist, and what happens when something goes wrong. So throughout this course, feel free to use AI. I certainly do. You don't need to know how to build everything we're going to create before you start. That's what the course is for. But the objective is that, by the end, you remain the architect of the system. This course itself is actually being created with the help of AI in much the same way. The images you're seeing are AI generated. Much of the narration is polished with the help of AI to make every word count. And even the voice telling you this story is an AI generated voice. It's not my own. But just like with the trading system we're going to build, I'm still the architect. I'm in complete control of what is being explained, what is being shown, and ultimately, what makes it into the course. AI helps me build it. It doesn't decide what I'm trying to build. I realize that for some people, an AI-generated voice can be a little off-putting. For me, however, it makes producing a course like this considerably more efficient. And ultimately, the content, the ideas, and the message I'm trying to communicate are exactly the same. The voice may be artificial. The experience behind what I'm telling you isn't, which is probably a good moment to tell you a little more about myself. Why should you listen to me? And what makes me qualified to teach a course about building a professional trading system? More than 25 years ago, I started my career as a trader at one of the first globally operating high-frequency trading firms. This was a firm specialized in trading enormous volumes at very high speed, often getting in and out of positions within the blink of an eye. It was an environment where technology, automation, and sophisticated trading systems were at the very heart of the business. And I happened to start at a fascinating moment in the history of trading. Around the world, the traditional open outcry trading floors were gradually being replaced by electronic markets. Traders shouting orders across a trading pit were making way for screens, algorithms, and increasingly automated trading systems. Over the course of this century, those systems have gone through an incredible evolution. And I've been fortunate enough to watch much of that evolution unfold from the front row. At the firm, there were essentially three groups of people at the heart of building these systems: traders, quantitative researchers, and software developers. The traders understood the markets. The quants turned ideas and market behavior into mathematics and models. And the developers turned those ideas and models into fast, reliable trading systems. But the really interesting part was what happened between those three groups. They worked together, constantly improving the systems, solving new problems, and trying to stay one step ahead of the competition. Over the years, I somehow managed to spend time in all three of those camps. I started as a trader, became heavily involved with quantitative modeling, and eventually became the guy writing the software as well. So in this course, you're not getting a software developer trying to figure out how trading works. But you're also not getting a trader who thinks putting everything into one enormous Python script counts as software architecture. We're going to meet somewhere in the middle. Every component we build has to pass two tests. Does it make sense from a software perspective? And does it make sense from a trading perspective? Or, put more simply, is this good software? And would I actually trust it with my money? Ideally, the answer to both should be yes. So this course isn't really about teaching you one trading strategy, and it isn't about giving you a finished trading bot to copy. It's about learning how to build the framework around your strategies, so that when you have an idea of your own, you have somewhere robust to put it. We're going to build a reliable and highly scalable automated trading system, one that can trade a large portfolio of instruments, run multiple strategies at the same time, and still remain understandable and manageable as it grows. And we'll build all of this around the principle we introduced today: one responsibility, one component. If that sounds like something you'd like to build, please consider liking and subscribing, and leave a comment below. I'd really like to know what you're hoping to get out of this series. In episode 1, we'll take a step back and look at some of the fundamental concepts we'll need to build our trading system. Things like API, requests, responses, and callbacks. Once we understand how those pieces work, we'll be ready to start designing the bot itself. See you there.